Welcome to OP Live Coaching Sessions, where for an hour a week, I talk to OP members, provide help and guidance to OP members with my background and expertise in gamification, behavioral design, and people can ask me any question related to my personal history and background, the Octalysis Island, the Octalysis framework, gamification. A lot of people like to show me their work, their website, their designs, their wireframes and game loops. And to the best of my ability, I comment on it and see what's the best way to improve that. The best way to ask a question is using the chat here. And you can either ask your question directly or you can say, I have a question, and then reserve your spot. When it's your turn, you can mute and ask your question directly. For those who want their questions prioritized, they send a message to Dirk in our Slack community. Dirk is a community leader. And if you do that and you're here, then your questions get prioritized. So checking with Dirk about how many questions do we have right now?
We have 3 + 2 questions lined up, and that should be plenty to fill the special session. So a quick reminder, we're trying something slightly new. So we call this a live coaching session spotlight. And the idea is that this session will be recorded and we're gonna try to cut some snippets out of it to make into YouTube shorts or some other marketing material.
Cool. All right, then let's jump right in.
Okay, the first question is from Pablo, and he's wondering about gamification for sales or negotiation process. Do we have Pablo? Yes. Would love to hear a bit of background behind your question.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Yokai. I'm super excited to talk here. It's my first time. I've been watching the other live coaching sessions, and I've just finished, Yokai, an audiobook called Objections from Jabby Blunt. And in that book, there are some chapters he shows some frameworks, some pipelines about the sales process. And it's basically something new for me because all my prospects, all my students came word to mouth. So now I'm trying to scale my job. And then I finished that audiobook recently. But my question and my curiosity was I've been learning a lot on Octalysis Prime, and I'd like to know how we can use, or if it's possible to use the Octalysis framework into the sales process. That was my curiosity. After I finished that audiobook, I kept thinking, oh, is it possible? How could I do that to, I don't know, make a sale, do this sales process thinking about the Octalysis framework? And by the way, the Octalysis framework is, wow, amazing. Everything. I've read your book and it's incredible. Actionable gamification was an eye-open. So far, thanks so much for everything you've shared with us, with all of us.
Yeah, thank you for your kind words. And yes, as long as you can define a player type and you can define desired action, so you want this type of people to do this type of activity, we could gamify, we can improve the motivation for those actions through those eight core drives, right? So in terms of sales process, there's usually two types of designs we've seen. One is to gamify salespeople and make them more engaged, motivated. They're knocking on doors, they're calling, they're selling. Or in one of our case studies, Procter Gamble, it's also getting them to help each other out, see each other as teammates as opposed to their own competitors. Now, of course, the other aspect is getting the clients to sign contracts, right, to buy your products. And so the player type is the client, and the desired action is to sign a contract or buy the product or swipe their credit cards, whatever. And then those, the same thing, you can use the eight core drive. So do you want to tackle one more than the other? Or when you talk about the sales, what do you have in mind? And by the way, this is very important. Anyone who comes to me and they say, Yuka, how do we gamify transportation or the healthcare industry? I wouldn't know the answer at all because I still don't know what the challenge is. The person has to say, can we get doctors to be more patient to their patients, or can we get patients to eat, to take their medicines more reliably, et cetera, et cetera. So it has to be framed in that such scenario. Then we can tackle it.
What I've been doing, I'm an English teacher, so I've been trying to gamify all the study process. I've seen some conversations and recordings about Duolingo, and I really like Duolingo. I'm learning chess through it. It's very fun and interesting. And I started changing some things. I don't use the word classes anymore. I use immersion sessions. I don't call them students. I call them achievers. And then I learned that's something related to the word achievers in your process. So I kept thinking, showing this gamification process through studying and trying to get these yes to them. Oh, I really need that. And I've been recording a lot of classes and trying now to create these player types and the user types. This is the way how to motivate or influence more them to show, wait, hey, this is totally different. You're gonna like it because people get sometimes scared. I notice their faces. I notice that, oh, it's not like the class, but it's, I still don't close the deal with you. And this is the way I was thinking about how can I get that part to say, oh, this is what I need, and I will not find this in anyone else with any other kind of a school or English teacher. And that was the
Because you're talking about a setting where they're already taking some classes with you, maybe like a trial, like experiment class, and you want them to say, all right, this is so great. I want to buy the class, right? Now,
yeah,
of course,
basically this.
getting them to go onto this first trial also is work and could be designed, but it sounds like you're saying they're already there, how to make them really believe in it. And I think this is a very common thing where usually when people are selling, they're thinking about, if you're familiar with the white hat, black hat, intrinsic, extrinsic design, right? We call left and right brain. Some people are like, oh, that's not scientific, but it's design tool. So left side, right side, it's easier to remember as a tool. So a lot of, no matter if you're trying to sell something or if you're an entrepreneur trying to raise money, what people really like to do is focus on white hat motivation, which kind of makes sense. Also, your marketing and branding should be white hat motivation. Hey, this is how you change the world. This is something bigger than yourself. Hey, you're growing, you're achieving mastery, and hey, look, you're using creativity. It's fun, it's interesting. The problem is that usually what will happen is they will like you more because when you phrase the question is, "Oh, how do you make them really like me? How do you like enjoy the thing?" They will like you more, but there's no urgency to sign up for the class, to buy the class. So what happens with investors, oh wow, that's great. I really like you guys. I think you're amazing. Come back when you have more. When you've proven this milestone, come back. When you have that milestone, come back. And it's just like, oh, I really like it. I really like it. Maybe this is maybe this is a really good class, and they go and they leave and they watch Netflix and whatnot. So usually deals close with black hat. People like you, they intend to want to work with you because of white hat, what we just described, but they really close because of black hat. Like for instance, oh, if there is a issue, there's a consequence if you don't sign up right now, right? Oh, if you don't invest money to us, we're going to take money from someone else and the opportunity is gone. And this is why you have those limited time promotions. So this is the black hat scarcity. Oh, you have 2 hours, or if you sign up today, there's the advantage. Or if you don't learn today, you're going to procrastinate and a year will go by and you'll be left with regrets, right? And a lot of people who are selling their pitching, especially people who like gamification, because a lot of us, we're like empathetic people. We like people to feel happy. It's hard for people to use this because it makes people feel quite uncomfortable, right? It's, oh, I have to do it or else I'll lose something, or why are you giving me all these restrictions? But that's what makes people act very quickly. And sometimes even for things they want to do. I don't know if you've heard, like sometimes I listen on the radio or whatnot, and it's, oh, this nonprofit is really cool. I want to donate to them. I have to write down the phone number, I have to call a number. It's just a lot of hassle, right? But then sometimes they'll say, hey, we have a generous donor who says for the next 2 hours, whoever donates money, they'll match the same amount, 1 for 1, right? Or $20 would be $40. And even though that adds scarcity, of course, that adds some white hat. Oh, there's a bigger booster to what I do, all that stuff. But there's a 2 hour limit. You have to do it right now. And that's when, okay, now I got to do it within 2 hours. And the nature of that motivation, the scarcity makes people a little uncomfortable, but it led to what they already wanted to do. Either epic meaning and calling, right? You wanted to help this nonprofit or develop an accomplishment. They wanted to actually learn the language. And this is why Duolingo, they even brag about how much black hat they use in the founder's TEDx talk and all that stuff, because he was talking about we use all this like guilting mechanism and say, oh, the little owl is I'm gonna kidnap your kids. I'm dying. It's so bad. And they're like, oh, wow, we appreciate you working so hard to make us learn Spanish. So if something they already want, it's good for them, then going back to learn, could use black hat. Now, of course, if you make them buy something that may or may not be what they want, but they'll buy it, and you need to immediately deliver a lot of value, give them a lot of white hat experience. That's when they're so that's number one in terms of the whole concept of that scarcity. But then if you go to what we call the triumphant brain theory, which is basically the idea that there's the crocodile brain, the midbrain, and the neocortex, right? A lot of people, when they think about the pitch, they think about their neocortex, with their neocortex, and they think their logical brain, and they think they're communicating to someone else's logical brain. So they're like, all right, look, factual stuff, A, B, C, D. It's very smart to sign up for my program, right? Now, the problem is that they're actually not talking to other people's neocortex because their people's neocortex is essentially lazy. We don't want to think hard on everything we're encountering. So we have a lot of gatekeepers. The first layer is the crocodile brain, and the crocodile brain needs to answer one question, which is this new or different? And that extends from core drive 7, unpredictability and curiosity. Because if you're like back in the day, if you're walking in nature, right? If you see a sheep and you see a sheep, you see a bunch of sheep, and you don't want to constantly say, oh, there's another one. What is that? Oh, it's a sheep. There's another one. You just don't need to process because your crocodile knows that there's nothing new. It's the same pattern you've always seen. It's safe. So your brain just screams it out. And then, so the first thing people need to immediately take classes, okay, this is different from others. I think Oren Klaff, yeah, he's the author of Pitch Anything. He says people will pay attention to you until they can fit you into your previous pattern and they zone out. So they'll listen to you and say, oh, this guy's just talking about how big data is important, or this person's just selling insurance, and they stop paying attention. So the first thing, no matter what, is to stand out, be different. This allows you to attract people to your trial class. In your trial class, they need to immediately say, like, wow, this is totally different. This is a new pattern I've never seen before. But so then now it's new. But if it's new, it's different. It could be scary, right? You see an animal you've never seen before. Maybe you need to run away from it, right? You need to fight or flight. So the next step is the midbrain, which answers the question, is it safe or not? And so it's, oh, someone jumps out of the bush with a spear. Oh no, is it safe? Or this is new information, but is it safe? Oh, it's my uncle coming back from hunting. It's safe. That's fine. And safety often comes from social norming. So core drive 5, social influence relatedness. So if you've heard like safety in numbers. So that's why when people are like, oh, this is new, this is different, but is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Then it's look at all these testimonials. These people signed up and they love it. This person said, oh, this was the best decision of my life. And you usually want to sprinkle those testimonials as closely to the decision points as possible. Like not just so a lot of websites you go to, it's all at the bottom piled together. But what's best is that every place when people click the desired, I want to sign up, next to it is signing up was the best decision of my life. And they go to the next screen and it's like, put in your credit card. And that's when a lot of people get scared, right? But maybe there's a quote there that says, initially I was hesitant, but I may buy 10x my value afterwards or something like that, right? So that social proof makes people feel safe and they continue with that. And then social proof testimonials, the more believable, the better. And the believability comes from being more specific. So if we just say, this is amazing by happy customer, people don't think it's a real person. But if it's this is amazing by John B, then it's okay. It's a little bit more real, but still seems fake. But if it's obviously this is the most amazing class I've taken to change my life, and it's by Jonathan Barbary, by just making up random names, Barbary from Arizona, father of three, and M Junior at Google, right? And there's a little photo. Then oh, this definitely is a very high chance this is a real person. At least subconsciously, you feel like it's a real person. And look, by the way, I don't recommend ever making up fake things. I always try to be truthful. Then people feel like, okay, the testimonial has value and I feel safe. Then it finally goes to the neocortex. All right, now is this logical? Does it make sense? And so again, so the few things that we talked about is you want basically all three backpack core drives. You want some scarcity, you want some loss and avoidance, right? If people don't sign up, there should be some consequence. Of course, you can't punish them, but let them know how their lives will be affected if they don't do the desired action. There should be unpredictability that makes them very surprised. Oh, what is this going on? What is going on here? It's a lot of delightful surprises. And then social influence core drive 5 to make people feel safe. And then core drive 2, development accomplishment. Of course, if you can tie all of that back to epic, meaning, calling core drive 1, that's the best too. That's how I would tackle what you're facing.
So thanks a lot for the explanation, and thanks a lot for everything you've done so far for us.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks for your encouragement. Helps me a lot for keep pushing through, do my work.
Nice. Then for our next question, we're going to go to Zane, who is wondering about how to balance what features go in MVP and V1 and how if something evolves, do you already include it or it's dependent on? It can get a bit messy in the design process. So please elaborate and ask your question.
You did. Absolutely. Well said. Hello, everyone, by the way. So working in the power and ease feature list, I've noticed that there's quite a lot of discipline required because some of the features you think, oh, this is really cool, but does it make sense to put it right there already? And because when you design a system, some things could be interdependent, you have to make these sort of trade-offs and choices. So I just wanted to know how, is there an extra layer to discipline yourself to not adding things to the MVP and just having the patience to say, hey, maybe it's a cool feature, but it could easily go to V1. We can stay to the core loop. So I'd really like to have some insight on that.
Yeah. So as you noted, especially the designers, right? We have a lust to add more features, make things more awesome. And of course, when everything is just an idea, right? Oh, here's an idea. Let's write it. And then it's one sentence on a spreadsheet. It's all so easy. But when it comes to actually developing and making it happen, we could be pushing each of these one-liners could be pushing out things by 3 weeks or a month and a half, right? So I think it's a very good question to wonder like how can we have more discipline and making sure we don't bite on more than we can chew. But also another problem is especially if you are working for someone else like clients or of course a executive, a lot of times the clients themselves and sometimes they're the team that's going to build it, they are also lustful towards what they can do. And that's not even, I think the designers have lust towards it. I'll use the word lust here. But I think the client has the arrogance to feel like, yeah, we can tackle everything. Our team is awesome. We can build everything. It's awesome. And then I'm like, okay, okay, if you just feel like nothing's too hard, design the best thing, and then, all right, go do it. And then they're like, oh, our Safari version of the website on mobile, it's still breaking. I just still need to fix this. Oh, Chrome, this is broken. Oh, are people still using this browser? And it's just, wow, they don't have a lot of capacity to do all these amazing things. And yeah, and so that happens a lot. And so it is very important to have the discipline. Okay, what can you launch? Now, one very important thing about this whole MVP and a minimum viable product concept, and for those who don't know, the idea is that you want to launch some people say the crappiest possible version of your product, because when you launch the crappiest version of your product, then the market will give you feedback. They'll still say it sucks, but they'll say, oh, it sucks so much. Can't believe it doesn't have ABC. And you might say, whoa, ABC? I thought they wanted 1, 2, 3. I was spending all my time building 1, 2, 3. Okay, then I need to do ABC instead. I'm so glad I didn't spend 9 extra months building this 1, 2, 3 that they didn't need. In theory, that makes sense. You're showing things to the public and they're giving you feedback, you're adjusting. And after 9 months, instead of creating the perfect mousetrap and you realize your customers don't have mice issue, they have, let's say, termite issues, right? You would actually have a nice termite solution after 9 months. But the problem also for an MVP is, remember, talk about human-focused design versus function-focused design, right? Most systems are function-focused. They assume people already have motivation, and then it optimizes for efficiency. Human-focused design remembers people have motivations and insecurities. A lot of times I've mentored a lot of startups, and what I see is sometimes they push out the MVP, and it's, again, supposed to be crappy, and people say it's crappy, and then they're like, oh, see, this sucks. The whole thing is stupid. Let us pivot, change direction to something totally different. And then they push out an MVP, which is supposed to be crappy, and people say it bad. Oh, it's terrible. The whole direction's wrong. And they start blaming each other. Oh, you're the one who said this is a good direction. You're the one that added. If we added this, then people would like it. And a lot of times they just get completely demoralized and the whole team falls apart. Okay. If you have the right attitude, then this whole lean MVP strategy is very effective. But a lot of times I've seen over and over again, people, when they launch an MVP, they don't see it as a tool to learn. They see it as a tool to validate themselves, right? To be successful. And when they're not validated and they feel like a failure, then a lot of things breaks down. So then we go into the actual question is that, so the MVP is not literally the crappiest product you could launch, right? Because if it is, then you just create a login page and a logout page. Like, even you can't even let people log out. It's the crap. You can log in, but that's it. The MVP is let's say, the crappiest product that proves your hypothesis, right? It's the one that shows, okay, we believe if we did this, which is different from what other people are doing, people will like it, people will use it. And most of the time when we're doing gamified designs, either you're testing out one mechanic to see if people like this mechanic, but what I tend to focus on is if it had at least one game loop. It has one loop that comes together. So a lot of you probably have seen these slides before. It's the slides about game loops, right? And If you haven't, go to octalysisprime.com. Yeah, go on the island and learn about the knowledge about building game loops because there's obviously more detailed stuff. And I don't know, once I resized the video or the PowerPoint, it all got messed up where I am. So I got to find that again. But basically, this is Octalysis Prime when it first launched. And Octalysis Prime, you can see this is June of 2018. It's been quite a few years. By the way, OP 2.0 is coming out very soon. So that's very exciting too. But you can see when it first launched, let me see if I can make this even bigger now that I'm at the right place. All right, slightly bigger. You can see that we wanted people to come in and they can watch videos. That's pretty normal. They can level up their 8-core drives. They can open a chest and we added, you can collect Chou coins. But at this point, Chou coins does nothing. They don't do anything. And I even tell the audience, hey, they don't do anything, but feel free to come in and open your chest every day, every 20 hours. And if you do that, it's because it's core drive 6, scarcity and patience. If you feel like if you don't come in every day, you feel like you're losing that opportunity to open this chest and get these Chou coins. Even the Chou coins are worth nothing. And people do that. So one of the things I wanted people to experience those 8-core drives themselves. There's a lot of people who read my book and they're like, oh, I see how gamers would fall for this scarcity thing or something else. But of course it wouldn't work for me. And they come into the island, they're like, oh, I don't know why. I'm just opening this chest every day. And you can capture Geomon, but you can't do anything with it. It just sits there, right? And it just ends. These are dead ends in the game loop. However, we have one game loop. And the idea is that instead of launching, if you want a horse, instead of launching with a leg of a horse, you want to start out with a small breathing animal like a squirrel, and then later on become a dog, and later become a horse. So you have this game loop that's connected, which is you level up your core drives and you unlock power-ups. And the power-ups, one of them, which is related to core drive 7, unpredictable and curiosity, allows you to open the chest twice as often. So instead of every 20 hours, you can open it every 10 hours. So now people who unlock this powers, wow, now have the privilege to come back every 10 hours to open the chest, and they come in every twice a day to open that chest. Again, the coins do nothing. And then they unlock another power, which is core drive 4, ownership possession. And it says, hey, when you open the chest, you get 40% more Chou coins. And people start understanding that, hey, these things synergize, right? If I can open twice as often and each chest has 40% more, it synergizes and it's a double booster. It's like using a coupon chain combo, all that stuff. And that becomes engaging. So we launch with this and we figure, okay, there's one game loop that we want to test to see if this engages people. Watch videos, level up core tries, get power-ups, and then help with the other things. And we saw that and it worked. So we like, that's great. We didn't feel the pressure to do anything else. Like it looks like just a half-finished function. And then, so we proved that hypothesis. And then, all right, then we have Chou coins do some things and add more to the game loop. So there's more green arrow booster connections. And then we add more and more. And eventually it becomes more complex. Obviously, we didn't strive to launch with this. We launched with half-baked, but enough to prove a hypothesis, which is our first point of connecting a game loop. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, that's a good answer, and thank you very much for that. I was just wondering then, what about if users you gain traction with the MVP? Is it shooting yourself in the foot if you don't add these extra features that you think might improve it? And at the end, people might just not come back if they've tested out the app and they're like, I already tried it, it's not so good. I think would people actually have that fear of losing those users?
Okay, so obviously, once you launch your MVP and people are testing, like I said, the previous example, like you do want to keep improving on it. And the challenge is usually, do you improve upon it based on your previous design and vision, or do you improve on it based on the user feedback or requests or complaints? That's often a decision-making point. But if your question is, oh, are you shooting yourself if you stop adding to, if you stop doing anything? Yes, I think so. It obviously depends on what is your MVP and what are your goals, what are your business metrics. If the MVP already is great, it meets your goals, the users are happy, they're going to stay to use that MVP, and there's no problem after that, or they already paid and you don't care if they stay for a long time. It doesn't matter. So it just depends. But most of the time, when you launch your MVP, like I said, some teams get demoralized and they stop working on it. They switch directions. That's a problem. But if you're saying you just stop because why not? I think that's usually a mistake. You usually want to keep making it less and less minimal and more lovable and robust and interesting. Of course, again, you can decide that, hey, MVP people use it, and then I'm just gonna move on to something else. But like you said, sometimes people stay, sometimes people leave. And if you already set up MVP and people are using it, that's a great sign. That means you struck a chord, your hypothesis was correct. I would say you always want to build on top of that and make it more robust and think about those four phases, right? First discovery, but at this point, onboarding you've most likely covered, but then just make that better through scaffolding and end game.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. I like the more foundational questions. That's really cool. Speaking of those type of questions, Friedrich actually has a question about the evolution of gamification in the past 10 years. What inspired your question?
Yeah, just the other day I saw your first book on Amazon again and realized, oh, it's has already been 10 years since it came out. I think sometime in the past you also said that like the sales of the book like they continue increasing every year, so it's not like one hit wonder, like it's getting traction, and certainly it has influenced the industry. And I'm just wondering, like in the last 10 years, like from your point of view, how has the field of gamification changed? Like what designs are more common nowadays, stuff like this. And then as a short follow-up question, like what is the one thing you would say is like still something that people do and they get wrong, or in your opinion, continue to do this one mistake when it comes to gamification?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I literally 2 hours ago had this conversation and I said, I was talking about how time goes by so fast. And I was like, I published my book and I'm like, all right, let's take a break from it and let's work on some other things, right? Create some frameworks, do whatever. And then, okay, I feel pretty good. Let's write a second book and push it out. And I was like, whoa, it's been 10 years already since my first book. And because the book, most people see the book, it's about the latest trends and innovations. Wow, that's a really old book. So that's why I want to write a second edition of my first book, right? With updated examples, and which is great because we have case studies ourselves. Now, I think it's interesting because there's a bigger thing about how the world of gamification is or was before Octalysis and the book. And you're right. So the first year, and the part of it is because I'm not like a full-time author. Writing a book is like my third line of or fourth line of work, right? I see my main profession as a designer. I help clients design solutions. I also don't even feel like I just want to be on a stage and teaching theory, whatnot. I like to design with my hands and create something and solve problems. But of course, when you can design and create things that solve problems, then you have something useful to teach people and they could do that too. And then you have books you could write and all that stuff. And I enjoy all those things too. I also really enjoy creating new frameworks and models or new systems and whatnot. But I wrote my book and I talked about how I use gamification, some of the core drives to get me to finish writing my book. But once I finish it, I threw it out there and had to go back to do my other work, client stuff, all that stuff, because I was leaving them behind. So I really didn't have much energy to promote my book. I just threw it out there. Of course, put it on my website, yukaixia.com, which did have, I think, about 30,000 visitors a month. But yeah, the first year it sold the worst, second, third. I don't think it was better. Like the fifth year, the sixth year, I think it was the highest sale, and then it plateaued from there. So when I say every year got better, it didn't mean like for 10 years straight. Like this year was the best compared to, because it's a pretty old book too now. But it's plateaued at a pretty decent point. As we know, in total there's about over 100,000 sales. I'd say before or even at the beginning of the book publishing, most of gamification time, people still really think about it as just slapping on points and badges. I'd say this is still common. And when your last part of your question, which is what are people still lacking? It depends on where they're at, right? I would say back then and now, the biggest issue I still face all the time is when people don't know any of this stuff, they think gamification is creating games, right? It's, hey, let's introduce gamification to their executive, because the director is totally bought in, but the exec like, no, okay, so we're creating some game, right? What's the game we're creating? And it's, no, we're not creating games. And the second is still stopping on points and badges and call it, they think gamification is just sprinkling some game design techniques onto a boring experience and then it works. But we'll talk about, because I think you want to know for more advanced people what mistakes they do, and I don't have an answer. We'll get to that. Maybe we'll have an answer there. But yeah, back in the most people were doing that, and the reason for that is because the companies that did the most marketing, branding, evangelization for gamification are the ones that raise VC money, and they are PBL platforms like Bunchball and Badgeville. And since they give points and badges and they are doing the most marketing on gamification with millions of dollars, then people think that's okay, that's just gamification. So I think when we introduced Octalysis and people started reading the book, it really allowed them to see different facets. First of all, and this is on purpose, right? On the left top, the first two game design texts you read is points and badges, and people are like, oh, wow, I thought that was all gamification. That's all there is, just these two things. And this is just one, like two of so many things. This, I'm literally at the tip of the iceberg. And once they see that, they're like, oh, interesting. And they say, look, this is, and then people start understanding left brain, right brain, white hat, black hat. And I've constantly been saying that we want to focus more on right brain core drives 357 because it makes the activity itself more enjoyable. You're not telling people to do boring things 1,000 times and giving them a reward. You're not making a boring game and it says, hey, if you play this boring game 1,000 times, you'll have a badge, right? And so I think after that, I started seeing more and more designs in the world that are more sophisticated. They will rely on specifically what I like more is I see a lot of Core Drive 7 mechanics, unpredictable curiosity. And the reason why I see Core Drive 7 mechanics more is because it's nice because it's still right brain, still fun and interesting, but it's black hat, so it gets immediate results. So you see a lot more Easter eggs and you see a lot more mystery box. And you could argue a lot of people in the Web3 world, like some of them did say that they really just took what I taught in actionable gamification and try to push that to the limits. And they're building the hype, building epic meaning and calling, having this tag like to the moon or whatnot. And yeah, and so they push in that direction. I've seen e-commerce sites apply a lot more gamification. And of course, we always talk about the best place to be is if you can be on the right top in terms of Core Drive 3 empowerment of creativity and feedback. So give people meaningful choices, strategy, boosters. And I start seeing more and more of that. So and I don't know if I claim credit. So we're talking about how the world is changing. I don't know how much is from me and what is not from me because obviously no, they're not reporting to me. But I started seeing more and more signatures of more advanced designs with intrinsic motivation with these boosters. And sometimes they'll just straight up say, hey, the designers of this very popular app, they just studied the Octalysis at the beginning and they applied it. Oh, that's great to know. But either way, I think the world got more and more sophisticated with making it interesting. They also start to see like they can't just rely on data alone, right? Because then you do farmville kind of things, which drive immediate results, but people burn out. And so I'm seeing that more and more. Also, another very important thing is there's a lot more case studies that show returns. So companies, they believe it in more now. Before, 10 years ago, it was like a cool concept. And even in my book, examples, hey, look at this game business. Look at this product that someone else built. That's really cool. Hey, look at this app. And this showcases this core drive. And you could say that's a little bit of a confirmation bias. You first find the successful things and say, look, this matches my theory, as opposed to say, let's build something with a theory and here's how it became successful. I think over the years, and a lot of projects are confidential. So over the years, we're lucky that I wish there were more. So that's why I hope all of you go out and do great things and it becomes great case studies with numbers, right? Then it's, hey, look, we did this is how we did this is the core drive we use, and these were the results. There's 80% improvement in metrics, 150, 250%. And then the company see this, oh, this is not just fun, not just interesting, but it actually creates strong value. And these are from brands that we look up to ourselves, right? If this amazing top brand is using gamification, getting results, who are we to say we're too serious, we're too professional to use it? So I think there's that shift. Now, when it comes to the biggest mistakes, like I said, it really just depends on what level people are at. Let's say the people who are quite good at Octalysis design, let's just go right there. I think even with Octalysis group members and people who are in OP, I think the biggest mistake people do is they're too rigid in the way they design things. Because these are people who know game loops, who know the core drives, and they understand the strategy dashboard, this kind of stuff. But I think what happens there is people like to follow things step by step too much, and they're afraid to jump around. It's like when I design things, I'm doing the strategy dashboard and I'm just putting together business metric. I'm like, oh, here's an idea. And I start going down to the brainstorming side. Okay, this is an onboarding idea in Core Drive 3. Let me type it here. And I go back, business metrics, and in player types, I'm like, oh, here's an idea to engage this type of person. That's cool. And I go down and I change. And I keep at, oh, here's a feedback mechanic. That's interesting. I want to make sure I don't forget this. So I jump around and I say, oh, here's what a potential game could be like. And the steps are just there to guide you, to help you get organized, to make sure everything is covered. And sometimes that's the foundation for the next step. But I do encourage just free thinking, jumping around. And I've seen people say, okay, when I'm thinking about player types, I cannot think about any ideas. I have to kill my brain to think about like brainstorming, because that's step 2 out of the 5 steps, and only on step 1 strategy dashboard. So I can't think about that. And I just think that's not a good thing. And there's a lot of methodologies I've created that literally like I created because I needed that information. It was useful, right? And I feel like people are also afraid to modify it or change. Some people change it and it become way worse, but people are like, oh, we can't. Like if you face a problem, these are just tools. If you know you can change it and it solves your problem better, it fits your scenario better, just make that change, right? These are just tools. No one says you have to follow. It just happens that the framework is robust. So when we follow the 5 steps the way it does, it basically so far it leads to solutions that solve the problem. And so we stick with that. But you don't have to, there's no like law that says you have to do it. It's just whatever solves your problem.
Awesome. Thank you for the insights. Learned quite a bit.
Okay.
Cool. Next question is more about the early stages of a design and the strategy dashboard. What are you working on and what's your question?
My question was a little more like you said, because I starting with the dashboard, but when I write the dashboard, I'm thinking about the wireframe, and then I'm thinking about mechanic feedback, and I didn't know if I couldn't jump between each of them, and I have a very easy design that I'm working on is for personal use, and I don't know if I can share my screen.
Oh yeah, okay, sure. I'm just, because we mentioned this a few times, just let people, this is a strategy dashboard defining these components, and it's part of the first step out of our 5-step design process, which you will learn about how to do step by step in the Octalysis Prime Island. All right, but you can share your screen. Let's check it out.
Okay, because here is just for one player, is for personal use, and his business metrics is all of this. He is like this type of player, and the desired action. First, I was watching in challenge models. There were a few desired action, but you said that desired action you need to write in chronological order. But a little knowledge about technology, so I thought, though, I doing in a PDF something like this is the kind of wireframe, and I'm working on the dashboard, but in the desired action, but in reward, but in wireframe at the same time, and I am not doing even the brainstorming or PE feature list. My idea was a short-term task with 2 PDF. One is for the core, and the second is for these days to record. You can cut them up, paste them over the last, and you have QR to make your stuff. So the first is spinning wheel. So here you can see your task, and when you do the start, this increase your statics. And I wanted to create some on-your optimism with little task, 2 minutes just, and empty QR. You just unlock the QR when you finish your stack. So when you finish your task, you can unlock our coins or maybe new QRs or maybe collection price, but it's just the dashboard. I didn't finish the dashboard yet, but I'm thinking in the wireframe, but I'm thinking in not brainstorm yet.
Yeah, okay. So I'll tell you that what you're doing is okay, but it's very important that you don't just continue on, you think you finish all the design. So what you do is when you have an idea, you can, and these ideas, those go in brainstorming too, right? Those ideas, you can probably say, okay, this is a Core Draft 3 idea and it's in scaffolding, whatnot. So I would recommend put it there first. And then if you want, you can start doing some mock-ups to see what it could look like. But what's very important is, all right, I've done that. I'm going to go back to the strategy dashboard and define the rest of the things, because that just, it's more like you're saving some of your thoughts, inspiration at the moment, but it's still important to the foundation. And there's so many times when it's, okay, is this the best thing? Well, we don't know. we have to go back to see which one is a higher business metrics or which player types we're targeting or which desire does this motivate or hey, we never thought about using this feedback mechanic to trigger this desired action. So it's good to have that because a lot of times, and then this is where if in some clients are like, hey, we're like, let's skip all of that, let's just do it. And when the clients say something, we try to listen as much as we can because they're on the time. And my team, literally, Chris Tamasa from the masterclass that many people have seen, he says that, yeah, he did it once. And then he realized, I don't know how to do this because the strategy dashboard is not defined. And then it's, wow, that made me appreciate strategy dashboard even more. When I want to design something, I realized I couldn't because these things are missing. So the idea is if you're going there and if you're doing correctly, because not everyone does it correctly, then you'll realize, oh, so doing A reminds you of an idea to go do B, but then doing B is, oh, I actually need this information from A. So it makes you go back to A and do it. So I still recommending follow that process. And like I said, you want to still put that in brainstorm because your ideas, maybe you have that in your mind, but if you put it on a chart, you also will know the ideas are they more white hat or black hat, intrinsic, extrinsic, especially if you have a lot of ideas, right? Because what you're doing is you're now designing with the first idea that came to your mind. That could be the best, that might not be the best. I don't think you really thought about should you use white hat or black hat at the moment. You're just like, hey, that's an idea, so you put it on, right? Whereas our process is like first think about all the ideas you can and then try to understand which ones are better for this player type to meet this business metric, to drive these desired actions, and which one should be better MVP and which one can connect well to a minimum game loop, right? So what comes out, there's a much higher probability that it's what you need, what you want, as opposed to you're chasing every rabbit hole you find, chasing down every rabbit hole you find.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good. And we have some time left for our bonus question of today, which is from Lucian here about time management and the feeling of being chased by time.
Yes, thank you. Glad to be here. Yeah, you will have a lot of very cool videos on the island of Octalysis Prime, and one of those is about the circles of influence. And I figured out that the time is something that influences me a lot. I was thinking about this question from some point, it's about procrastination, but it's not just procrastination. I think it's a little bit more. So I want to ask how to overcome being chased by time.
Okay. I think the first question to answer, is it useful to feel stressed about your time? This question is, are you actually in survival mode or you could be in comfort mode? Okay. So if a wild beast is chasing you, then it's good to feel stressed. And it's like, okay, I feel bad if I'm not moving right now. I need to move right now. So if you feel like your life is in a place where you actually do need to hustle, you do need to get a lot of things done, and like you said, you're procrastinating, then it's actually a good thing to have that push, this black hat push, like I need to actually do it. Now, the worst is that you feel this and you still don't do anything, right? Then you just feel bad. But because your question is, how do we not feel this way? But sometimes it's good to feel this way. The most important thing is actually take the action. But oftentimes, if you have that black hat feeling, a lot of people, let's say something is due in a week. So what happens is some people have this feeling for 6 days and do nothing. And the last day they will feel that, but a different level of that, right? Oh, I have to do this by tomorrow. And then they start working and then they get it done by tomorrow. So that last day being chased by time is absolutely essential and necessary for your survival, because or else you will like not get your stuff done and you will have most of the time bad consequences that lead to negative spirals. Now you could say, what is a way to deal with it in the first 6 days? So it's still good to have that feeling of scarcity, like it's still time bound. You still need to have some urgency to it, but this is from a goals looking backwards, right? The other way is to, and this is often more when there's no immediate danger. You're doing okay right now, and I think for me, at least, the mentality to think about it is I think about, am I using time in a way that I won't regret, that will become something later on? You remember back in the day when I was in highly driven young entrepreneur, I talked about I had a watch that was set on alarm every 15 minutes. So every first 15 minutes, my watch alarm clock will go off, and I'm like, oh, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. Let me go back to doing what I'm supposed. Let me level up my life. I was playing my 10K HP game, right? I was leveling up a life. I'm doing the work. It's all good. So at least I don't waste more than 15 minutes. And people would tell me, wow, that must give you so much anxiety all the time. No, actually, that was fun. I'm like, okay, it keeps me on track to play the game and I keep growing. But the idea is, and at the time I'm doing everything I did, I thought, is this going to make a difference for me 5 years later? And it's, oh, no, it wouldn't. Like playing this little mini game, it wouldn't, right? But maybe playing this game that lets me learn about new game design techniques, it would. Or being healthy would make a difference 5 years later. I really thought about everything in that concept. So there's no immediate danger. So therefore, I decide to spend time on the long-term things, on just growing myself. And just recently, these few weeks, I've been talking to you guys. I've been creating the NationCraft framework, which I have been continuing to develop. And that's another story. But and authority network, those there's no pressing need. And also for my book, right? It's, if I never publish it, no one's gonna chase me and say, Yukai, you didn't publish it, you'll be punished for it. These are proactive activities. So in life, there's proactive and reactive. Reactive are things that we have to do, client meetings, their deadlines, their due dates, and all that stuff. And then once we finish those, what we do with the rest of the time is our proactive time. And I think it's very important to spend proactive time on things that help you grow and make you get you better. But a lot of times people feel like, oh, I finished my reactive thing, so now I can just watch Netflix. And yeah, maybe you're learning something from Netflix. It's either way, it's okay. But you're doing something that may not be the most direct in helping you grow. So in that sense, the only way you'll keep growing is if you're lucky that your reactive tasks are the ones that get you to your goals where you want to be. But most of the time, the things that people you want to do isn't going to get you to the goal you want to achieve. Even with parents telling their kids like study hard, go to law school, it's like that's a good place to be, but maybe not what their kids want to be. And they finish law school and they go become a musician afterwards. Okay, so that's from a thinking about time. Like you can feel like that time there's the time that you feel like, oh, it's chasing you, it's trying to kill you, and you need to respond to it quickly. That's the healthy black hat, I'd say. But then the rest of the time, you want to be friends with time and say, how do we become partners every minute? I don't want to waste you. I don't want to throw it away. I want to work with you to build a better future together. And the future, interestingly, is a concept of time. Build a better future with time. Now, in terms of psychological concepts, I don't know if you've seen, they talked about biochemically, the feeling of anxiety as stress is very similar to the feeling of excitement. And so I have seen, honestly, a lot of times where it's like when some people go on stage or they're dealing with something, instead of saying, oh, this is going to crush, this is scary, this is exciting. Like when I get on stage, sometimes I still feel a little nervous or I'm doing something and I'd be like, it's game time. And we talked about forcing yourself to smile so your body communicates to your brain that this is excitement. And I think it does help. And this is why the whole 10K HP, 10,000 hours of play mentality is so important, because we talked about in games, you actually expect obstacles, right? If you play a game where you keep going forward and then you beat the game, that's very boring. No one wants to play that game. The game has to artificially add obstacles, enemies, bad guys, holes to fall into. They want to add obstacles and frustration so that you could overcome these challenges, grow, learn, and that makes the game fun. But in life, a lot of times when we have the wrong mentality, when there's an obstacle, when there's a setback, we're like, oh, why does this happen to my life? My life sucks. As opposed to, yay, now I died the first time playing the game. Now I have to grow and learn and try it the second time, the third time, fourth time, and I become better. Before I die in stage 1, now I die in stage 7, right? That is a much stronger gamer mentality to tackle life. And those people who obviously don't give up, they're positive, they're optimistic, they're constantly growing. They're the ones that do better in life. So not just, oh, what is the mental psychological health, right? They just do better in life. And we've seen that when people work really hard, but they feel like they're stressed, they're a victim, they have anxiety, it completely hurts your health. But when they actually feel like they're doing their epic meaning calling, they're on this journey, they're changing the world, they're working 90 hours, 100 hours a week, no rest, they don't feel sad. They actually feel empowered, they're excited. Like I said, I'm doing much better than I was compared to when I was a starving entrepreneur. But I really missed those times. I had $8 eating budget a day in San Francisco. And I remember I drove my car. I didn't turn on my air conditioning when I was driving because it cost money. And there's all these things that I was constrained about. But I thought, and I was working 100 hours a week because I calculate 160 hours a week. I sleep 48 hours a week. So that's about 7 hours on average. And then 20 hours to go to the bathroom, to eat and do do the necessary things. And then there's 100 hours left to do whatever I want. And every hour I was working, But I was like, oh, I'm overworked. My life. I was like, yeah, I wanted to work. It was fun. I was solving problems and I had a dream. I was pursuing it. I was growing. So that mentality shift is very important. I've seen you, Lucian, specifically. You have shifted your mentality a lot. Before when we first
Thank
met,
you.
when I first saw you in OP, yeah, I I remember even the first comment I ever seen in OP. You're like, I tried it. I didn't, what you said in the video, and I think it doesn't work. Like, why does it not work? And I'm very disappointed. I remember the first comment I see, it was like, wow, this person's like a almost like a hater, like a big complaining, and I don't know what to do with this person. And then later you're like, okay, what's going on with my life? And then over time, I think you became more positive, more optimistic. I think you're still dealing with challenges, but you are more confident. You know what to let go, what to pursue, when to ask for help, and especially ask for help without losing your dignity and without making other people feel too stressed about it. Also, oh, they owe you something. So I think you have been growing that way. And so get a quick summary because I know we're out of time. It's basically treat you still want to have some stress through your time. That's healthy because some things are dangerous. You have to go process it. But you want to make sure you treat your proactive time really carefully. It's doing something that helps you grow. You want to, as much as possible, see threats as excitement that you can overcome. And you want to invest in your growth and continue to do something you're passionate about, or see how what you're doing leads to a passionate goal at the end. Maybe what you're doing right now is not amazing, it's still a grind, it's still scary, it's still struggling, but you see how this is going to lead to a place that you're passionate about and that helps your psychological state, puts you in better condition, and also helps you get your goal better. Hopefully that provides some context to your question.
Yes, yeah, I really like the idea of becoming friend with time. This is something I really enjoy, or I hope I will enjoy it, becoming more friend with time. And it totally makes sense that you say the 10K HP topic is related to it. Yeah, that's
Great.
pretty cool. Like it.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. And as you guys can see, feel free to, in the future life coaches, feel free to ask any question you want, literally throw anything at me. In the worst case is I don't know how to answer it and I say, I don't know, but so far hasn't happened yet. We'll see when that happens. But I think it's just fun dialogue. We're all learning from each other. But unfortunately, our time has passed. Has always been the fastest hour of my week, my 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. meeting, my favorite midnight meeting of the week. And I do look forward to seeing all of you in the Slack community more, in comments under the Octalysis Prime videos, and of course, in all the future live coaching sessions. And with that said, I will see you guys next time.